Something happened to me recently. It was a small moment. Uh, it was very interesting because it was unusual for me. I was sitting down to eat my lunch and something just sort of came over me. Internally, I felt kind of jittery and nervous and scared, and I could feel like my breathing change, and I didn't know what it was, and I had to kind of stop and figure out what it was, and I realized this feeling was anxiety. Uh, it's not something I encounter regularly. So I stopped. I just sort of didn't even start eating. And I went through all the potential things that could be causing this. Deadlines, bills, um, just everything. Check a to-do list. No, no, no. This is what was happening. And when I actually landed on what it was, I was kind of shocked and amused. It was kind of funny. I realized that a TV show that I was watching had caused this anxiety. This was a show from like 15 years ago. I started watching it and never really completed it. And then recently I was looking for something to watch and started from the beginning and thought, wow, this show was written. This was so well written, so well produced, so well acted. It was funny. It was interesting. It takes place in New York and, well, Brooklyn. And parts of it were very, very disturbing. Just for the main character's sort of internal thoughts. Anyways, the point was I realized, oh, that show was really getting to me. And I have to stop watching this, which I did. I just stopped. And it reminded me of something that I have been working on for years. What I allow into my head and what I don't allow into my head in order to live a life where on a day-to-day basis I don't really feel anxious. And if I do, I can often figure out why. Well, this sort of subject matter borders on medical professional advice, which I will stay away from. I will say that I do believe that therapy is a wonderful thing for everybody, for anybody. There are professionals who dedicate their lives to helping people. And I think it is a wonderful thing, even if you don't think you need therapy, to go to therapy and to be able to talk to someone about everything. Issues that you didn't even know might be causing some kind of effect in your present life. Well, what I wanted to share, because I don't want to give broad advice to people out there about this subject matter, which is one that I think plagues a lot of people, anxiety, I wanted to share how I deal with it and how I address it. A key aspect of this is linked to a book that I read and that I was introduced to years ago when I was taking yoga classes in Toronto from my first real yoga teacher, who I would consider is my yoga guru, Axel Lima, a fantastic yoga teacher. He read from this book during one of the classes, and then I went out and I got it, and this was maybe 20 years ago, and I've had it ever since. And this book has really changed my life, because I think the subject matter of the mind is something very difficult to write about, and meditation. And this book is written in such plain language that it's so accessible. There's a part in here that I found. Sense impressions are food for the mind. They determine the quality of our thoughts and actions. Watching violent films, for example, fills the mind with violent impressions that reflect in our consciousness and can turn into aggressive behavior. The mind becomes toxic in the same manner as the body does when we feed it junk food. Negative impressions from certain television programs and films from newspapers and magazines and from rajasic or tamasic music are indigestible to the mind, making it dull and depressed. Consider reducing the number of newspapers and magazines you read and the amount of television you watch. Their effect is to stimulate the mind, increasing the desire to consume and causing feelings of inadequacy. When the senses are filled with such negativity, the result is often disturbed sleep patterns, a craving for stimulants, and a lack of clarity, creative energy, and inspiration. Well, when I read that for the first time, I was kind of stunned, because there was a part of this that I had been doing for many years before this book told me, and it's specifically avoiding news and newspapers. I know that there are many out there that will say that it is an obligation of every citizen of every country to be aware of what's happening in the world, and the way that we're aware of that is by the news. I am not one of those people. I have always struggled with understanding my role in all of this and being here, being in this world, dealing with the pressures of life. And I learned early on that one of the things that I needed to do in order to be a person that could be positive, that could give to the people that I love and care about, that could create, that could paint and focus on practicing music and focus on giving my energy to those positive things, was avoiding news and newspapers completely. I don't want to know. I don't want to read it. I don't want to hear about it. I will inevitably hear about it. I don't live in the forest, so by myself, so I'm aware of what's happening in the world, but I don't want to consume that stuff. And that early, because I did that early, like as a teenager, it helped me. It helped me a lot. And then when I read this in here, I thought, wow, I never thought about the same thing from TV or film or even music. But it made sense to me. Listen, I love a cheeseburger, and I love French fries, and I don't really love French fries. I love pizza, and I love Coke, and I love McDonald's, and I love smart food. But I will say, I love that stuff because of how I consume it. Once a year, maybe. And but I also love eating dark leafy greens. I love vegetables. I love vegetables more than meat. And I don't love them because they're healthy, but they're healthy. This whole thing is holistic. It's like when I think about this, I think about that statue at the Met, the dancing Shiva, the Nataraja, and the flame around him. It's a circle of fire, and the circular aspect is associated with it's called an epithet. It's a pairing of two words that's associated with Lord Shiva. Adi Antam. Adi and Antam is beginning and end, and they say that Shiva is Adi Antam Illam, without beginning or end. That's the circle. I do see our lives as sort of circular. Things move and they come back around, and everything is affected by everything else. The food analogy in this book is a really good one, because we actually physically have to put things into our mouths, and we do that because that action of putting the food into our mouths is what enables us to live and to do what we need to do. We know what's good and we know what's bad, and I do majority good, but sometimes I do bad, and I feel like the bad actually is good for me, because it helps me just kind of be free and be loose and be open-minded, and not be so rigid about things. But the same thing is true for the mind. I don't want to live in a monastery, and I don't want to be so strict and rigid, although maybe eventually I will. Maybe if I move in this direction and do more work, which is what this book says, maybe that's the place where I will actually want to be and where I will end up. I don't know, but I will say that for now, this anxiety thing, because I hear this word so often, and I know a lot of people suffer from it. This little paragraph led to reading the whole book, and it really helped me. It really actually helped me get rid of, for the most part, that feeling of anxiety. I don't often encounter it, hardly ever. So it's really shocking when I do. And I would love to share that with as many people as possible. The ability to figure out what they're putting into their minds that maybe is affecting their feelings of anxiousness. And this book just made me aware of that. So if I could just make other people aware of the possibility of filtering, then this is worthwhile. Because I don't think it's as common for people to see their mind like a mouth that they're putting things into, like food. But I do think that we should look at our minds that way. You know, because we go to sleep and we wake up and then we just live. And we work and we play and we relax and we go on vacation and we converse with our friends and family and strangers. And so much of what is happening in here, or what is being put into here, is happening from these devices and what we're consuming mentally. I do think it's very, very, very important to be aware of what you're putting into here like this, because you are putting things into here. This book was written before there were cell phones, but I just look around me and I see how much people are consuming. So maybe a lot of it's great, like this. but just being aware of what's going in here is the first step to something extremely powerful. Filter it. Be careful of what you're putting into here. There's a part of this book about conversing and talking and the people that you converse with. It mentions people that you might spend time with where the conversation is uplifting and energizing, and you leave and you feel nourished. And then there are people who are negative and they suck out your energy and they're angry, and you leave and you feel drained. This book says that in order to be able to work on your own mind so that it grows in a positive way, you should be conscious of these conversations and people that you spend time with, and maybe cut it out or reduce it. This is not an easy thing to sort of be aware of, all the things that are happening in your mind regularly, because it just kind of happens. But being aware of how you can set yourself up for avoiding the stuff that maybe should not be going in there is a part of my regular practice. You know, I was thinking about this and this book, and I was thinking of when I go up to Connecticut and stay with Guy Wolf and Erica Warnock and their two kids, Lizzie and Christian. My whole time there is, we're not talking about the news, and it might be mentioned here and there, little things about what's happening in the world. But when I'm with Guy, we're talking about banjos and guitars and his motorcycle and clay and pottery and glazing, or spectacular views from the hills in Litchfield County. And when I'm with Erica, his wife, in the morning, when she and I are having coffee alone, I'm talking about music or Italy, because she's part Italian. And it's the same with the kids. And I realized my entire time there is like this book says, spending time with people that are uplifting. I leave that family and I feel so nourished inside. I feel like I was fed the most valuable mental food. And then there are there's a friend that I love who's a news junkie. And when I'm with her, the radio is playing constantly. While the radio is playing, the TV's on in the bedroom. There are newspapers every day, stacks of magazines. She's always feeding me bits of information. And I'm always telling her, I don't want to know. I don't want to hear it. I don't care. And she's like, well, it might be valuable. You might be able to use some of this. Well, maybe I will and maybe I won't, but it's not worth all the shit that comes with listening to that crap. So when I walk into a room and no one's there, I turn the radio off. I don't want to hear it, because when I hear even bits of it, it is awful. To me, the ultimate purpose of the news and newspapers is selling advertising. It is a business, like most things in this world. And that would be fine if the messages were, and the information was truly to uplift the people and to educate them and to make them better. But that is not the case with the news. Being aware of what's happening in the world, to me, is not worth what comes with knowing all of the bullshit that we don't need to know. So anyways, I shouldn't even be starting down this path, because it really infuriates me. And I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be an angry person. And I don't want to spread that. And I mean, I could just hear and feel what was happening in my voice as I started talking about the news, which is why I avoid it. I don't want to spread that in the world. And what I just did is an example of spreading that negativity and spreading that anxiousness and spreading that anger. The world, so much of the world, since the beginning of human existence, has been fueled by anger. I don't want to be that person. And I hope for most of the people out there that they are also not desiring to be those types of people. So that was my little experience that was revelatory. And I hope that it shares something with you that you maybe are able to apply to your lives.